Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar series. Today we're going to be talking about data protection dance, plugging leaks before your secrets go viral. I have a very special guest today. I have Ash Talker with me. He is a director of solution architects here at Zscaler. So welcome, Ash.
Thank you.
And a quick agenda. We're going to talk about data protection, and first we're going to cover instance discovery dashboard. Then we're going to talk about some WebSocket inspection, and then lastly, close with some LLM context. And these are going to be features and functionality of the Zscaler Data Protection Suite. So without further ado, let's talk about data protection in general. This is probably a pretty accurate description of what a lot of organizations' data protection programs look like. There's things like alert fatigue, and they might be saddled down with some legacy data protection solutions. And the hope of Zscaler, our goal is to greatly simplify that by reducing the alert fatigue and also moving towards a unified data protection solution. The first thing we're going to cover is Instance Discovery Dashboard. And I think this feature that was added to the Zscaler platform is very beneficial for our customers. We have a dashboard that shows like all of the applications that are currently being used by our customers. But I think what there were some gaps there in that I know we use OneDrive, but how many instances of that are we using? So I'll turn it over to Ash that might be able to describe this in a little bit more detail on what exactly these instances mean.
Yes, sure. So the idea over here is similar to shadow AI, shadow IT. This is shadow instances, which means that a customer does not know do they have a problem or not. They don't know what they don't know. Instead, we give them the visibility, as Chris mentioned, that how many instances of OneDrive are running in your environment? How many instances of Box are running in your environment? Maybe you have contractors that you have to deal with, or suppliers or vendors who have their own instance. But is that the right instance or not? Maybe it is a hacker instance that someone just sent saying, "Hey, log in here," and they take you into a box or a OneDrive instance where they're trying to phish your credentials. So this is one use case. The other use case also, which is really important, is identifying the various instances of your cloud, public cloud instances. So let's say you've got corporate Zscaler, but I decided that, hey, my team needs, they need to run their own AWS instance just because we want to run some tests, and everyone decides to run their own instances. That's not really good. You don't want to be under one corporate instance. So we'll give you visibility into all of these various instances that are running in the environment, whether it's spun up by a developer or not, right? So this can be across GCP, AWS, Azure, etc. Sounds good?
That's good to know. So there's I guess two parts to that. The first one being a subset of shadow IT. So let's say your organization is allowed to use, I'm just calling out a random service like box.com. So I have my own corporate instance, but we find out that some of the users are spinning up their own corporate instances. They could be threat actors that say, hey, please use this instance of Box. And then your Zscaler policy says you're allowed to use Box, but then we don't know that they're using a malicious instance of that. Or I'm a clever user. I pull out my credit card, start my own Box.com account, and I'm now able to exfiltrate data to my own personal instance instead of the corporate instance. So this is one way of discovering that there might be within your allowed IT, there might be some unsanctioned instances within your environment. Is that accurate?
Exactly. There'll be those are unsanctioned, and those could lead to other problems. Maybe you have services turned on within these AWS environments which are not conducive, which are risky. One service that is risky is AWS Bedrock, which hosts AI models. So what if someone decides, hey, I'm going to host DeepSeek on an AI model in AWS that's still running in your environment, in the customer's environment. So that visibility is the visibility of that instance, not the visibility of of the DeepSeek running on AWS Bedrock that we provide with another functionality, which is called the ISPM. But I'm not going to go into that. This is more about giving you the visibility into the instance first.
Perfect. And then that leads us into a feature that Zscaler has had for a little while, and this is a tenant control. So what within Box, you could say you're allowed to go to Box, you're allowed to do certain things with our corporate instance of Box. But if you go to an unsanctioned version, we can then granularly control those actions. And before we can even, block that, we have to first know they exist. So we provide the discovery for that, which then allows you to implement more granular controls on these newly discovered instances.
Exactly. Now that you've discovered, let's put some controls around it. And you can say, hey, because we are giving you the activity level visibility, not just the instance. You know the application, you know the instance. Now you also know the activity. So you can say, this is a very common example for customers. Corporate GitHub being accessed by a developer, by developer group, they will get complete access, creating, uploading, downloading, pulling, etc. But if you are product management, maybe you will get viewing, editing, few options from an activity perspective for the same corporate GitHub instance. And if it is anybody else, if it is any other GitHub instance which is not corporate, maybe other public GitHub instance, then you only get to view and everything else is blocked. So you can get very granular with the instance and the activity.
Great. And just with a lot of the other Zscaler cloud application rules, we allow caution, block, or isolate. So it's not just yes or no, we have options in between as well.
Yes, to make it read only.
Great. All right, moving on to our next capability that we'd like to cover, a WebSocket inspection. And this was something that was pretty exciting to me. I've heard the request for the capability of WebSocket inspection being thrown around for a bit. This is I guess, a newer technology that's being used, but primarily very heavily used by AI models. And the example we have here is Microsoft Copilot and ChatGPT-based tools. And when you think of LLMs and I want to ask a question, what's the best Italian restaurant near me? Like in my head, like that's an HTTP post. I'm just posting something and they're gonna get an HTTP GET response. But it actually goes a little bit deeper than that. It's not just an HTTP post. So we're actually using something called WebSockets. So now Zscaler has the capability to inspect WebSocket connections in order to put some controls around Copilot and GPT-based applications.
Yeah, my favorite prompt was, which I heard was, how should I hide sensitive data in a cake recipe? So
Yeah.
so all of that visibility you will not get with an HTTPS based protocol that support that we have today, right? For that you need another protocol, which is of course WebSocket. The whole idea is the reason why they've moved to WebSockets is because they have multiple transactions going through. It's much better for chatting, for a back and forth, and it's much efficient. And of course, it also comes with other problems, which is that we don't have visibility into it. If it is WebSockets, earlier we used to just step down into HTTPS, right? So from WebSockets, you could step down and say, hey, only use HTTPS. But then Microsoft became smarter about it, and that did not work. So that's where we decided that we're just going to support WebSockets protocol, and that's how we get visibility into the prompts going into Copilot.
Yeah, it's the old protocol downgrade attack. It's
Yes.
useful for hackers, but also useful for things like if you don't support WebSockets and you just downgrade to HTTP, and Microsoft says, no, 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 we spent so much R&D creating WebSockets, you will use WebSockets. And then Zscaler's like, all right, you win. We're gonna now inspect that because we want to enable organizations to productively use AI, but we also want to protect them. And this is one method that we're able to do that is now we support the inspection for WebSockets.
Mhm.
Great. All right. Moving on to our last item here, LLM context. And this is, I would say this is an interesting feature in that when having conversations about data protection with customers, and one of the things that at least I personally always say, data protection is a journey. It's never a destination. And it's true because one of the things is an example here, like he ate an apple versus Apple Inc. released a new iPhone. The word Apple exists in both cases, but they mean very different things. And that's really a simplified example of what data protection and context is. So I think that's where Zscaler comes in and adding context to the data protection uh, capabilities here. So not just regexes, not just yes, no, like a Boolean type decisions, but we can actually add some context around that. So I'll throw it over to Ash to explain this one.
Yes. Essentially, we taught a robot that will read your files, that will find sensitive data, and will have some opinions about your data organization skills. Oh dear God, this formatting is terrible. Things like that. Maybe not so much in detail, but the idea being that we we've already introduced the predefined and custom dictionaries, which are prone to false positives. So now what we've done is that we are using a human-like intuition behavior, where we are using this BERT model. It's a modified BERT large language model, which will be used to identify, okay, this is a financial document, or this is a 5-year plan, or this is a healthcare document. And within the healthcare category, we will also have multiple subcategories, like this is a patient record, or this is an invoice, or this is a uh, something to do with the medical records, etc. Right? So those are the things that we give you, those categories and the subcategories, and this goes over 200 categories that we offer.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. And just to provide, a little bit more context of that, because like a screenshot, you could do like potentially do something like OCR and then you can read that. But like a hand-drawn schematic, that's something that you can't really perform an OCR on that. But if I have some contacts that say maybe I'm in the manufacturing vertical and I see something that looks like a trade secret, is that something that we could potentially, classify that as confidential without, explicitly marking it as such?
Yeah, so just to be clear, you mentioned handwriting, right? So handwriting, extraction of handwriting is always going to be OCR. The LLM classification is not going to be able to really get visibility into that. LLM classification is just looking at the text and then identifying what the topic is, what the category is. And if it
Got
is
it. Mhm.
manufacturing, then we'll be able to say, okay, this is maybe it's a contract, as you're saying, like maybe it's a contract. So what are the various categories under contract, or if it's an invoice, what are the various categories under invoice, and so on and so forth.
Perfect. Okay. Great. And then uh, that covers the features that we were going to have an overview of today. Let's talk licensing. So for the discovery dashboard, that's included with the inline all app SKU. Is that correct?
Yes. So before I move forward, I do want to mention a little bit about the LLM context.
Sure.
Now, the LLM classification has already been enabled on. So as you can see, there's structured, unstructured, there's IaaS, SaaS, right? So for DSPM, which is your IaaS environments, it's already available. However, for your SaaS environments, inline, in real time, if we want to categorize, hey, run this document against our LLM and tell me the verdict, that is just being released, and we are September 3rd. So in the next week it'll be released, and over a couple of weeks will be deployed across the various clouds. Okay.
Okay.
Now
Great.
going
Great.
back
No, thank
to
you.
yeah, going
Mhm.
back to your question about um, the instance discovery dashboard. The instance discovery dashboard, it's very compute intensive, because we have to go through, you have to break open the you have to run it through protocol decoders. You have to break open the API, look at the JSON, get the instance. All of that information is compute intensive, so that will come with the license, as you mentioned, for inline all applications. Because inline all applications not only identifies the instances, but will also apply controls to it.
Okay, great. And then the WebSocket inspection, I understand, is the Gen AI SKU.
Correct. The WebSocket will fall under GenAI SKU.
Okay, and that's a SKU that would provide protections for Gen AI. So a lot of organizations today are looking to securely implement generative AI. So there's a SKU for that, and that is the license level for that WebSocket inspection. And then I'd say the last thing that we covered here is the LLM classification. So which SKU or which product category does this one fall into?
Yeah, so the GenAI SKU, by the way, will not only give you, the prompt visibility through, so it'll turn on WebSockets, it'll give you that prompt visibility, but it will also give you controls around those prompts. So if you want to apply DLP, if you want to apply isolation, all of those controls will be given with the GenAI SKU. The LLM classification SKU will be only available for customers who have the advanced classification SKU. So this is the classification and encryption SKU that we have, FY25. That SKU, which supports EDM, IDM, OCR, that will also now support LLM classification.
All right. Well, that's all we have for today. I'd like to thank Ash very much for his time. I'd like to thank you for your time in viewing this. Hope you learned something new today. And as always, have a nice day.
All right. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Chris.